Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Welcome to episode number
93.
on the march to 100.
What are we going to do for our
I
100?
don't know. We got to have a celebration.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open for number 100. All right. We're so excited. We're counting down this week to our free webinar. If you haven't signed up, why?
Why?
Not that I'm trying to guilt you into it, but you should. Go sign up. It's free. And it is about why intimacy fades in marriage. And we're excited. We've been working on it all this weekend. And we're excited to have that. So come join us, please. We'd love to have you.
Yes, we would.
Also, remember, we have been having some wonderful coaching sessions for our group coaching. That library up online is just growing and growing with resources. Like I said, I wish I had it when I was in the middle of my crises. It would have been helpful. So really, we want to share those resources with you. So you can go take a look at that on the website. I'll put all these links down in the bottom of this podcast.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Techie.
We had a wonderful week visiting our granddaughter
Oh, we did.
and our son-in-law and our daughter. We
and our
love them all.
daughter. And the islands.
I have to tell you, I don't know. I think this is good most of the time. I get uber excited to cheer on the people that I love. If you've listened to my daughter's color guards recordings, there's a man in the background screaming, and she has to remind everyone that's her dad. I will be the loudest one in the arena. I will be the loudest one on the court and loving on my kids and celebrating them. And it's not fake. It's just I get really excited when it happens.
I get chills and teary.
Yeah,
You
you
get
get quiet, I get loud.
I get chills and teary. I'm just over there with chills on my arms and a tear rolling down my cheek.
We had a pretty funny moment while we were on the island of Whigby. My son-in-law is a P-8 pilot, which is pretty amazing. It's like a 737 for the Navy. And he's stationed there. And he just got stationed there, just got certified to fly that plane. We got lucky enough the second day we were there, we knew he was taking off and we knew relatively what time he was taking off. And so I did my research to say, what is the best place to sit on the island to watch these airplanes take off? And so we went down to this beautiful beach and we sat there and it seemed to take forever. There was fighter jets, the Growlers, the F-18s kept taking off and coming around. And I'm like, I think I hear a P-8 starting up over there. And so we're sitting on the island, and the runway that we thought he was going to take off runs parallel. So we thought we were going to just be able to see him take up over the ocean. And there's one runway that runs right at us. And we're like, no, he thought he was taking off the one over the ocean. Well, we're standing there and I look down the beach and all of a sudden about the time he's supposed to take off, this P-8's coming straight at us.
Right over our heads.
And I'm
on the
recording, and
beach.
in this recording, I'm pretty obnoxious.
You were very excited.
I was so excited. There was something about thinking that was my son-in-law in that plane, flying that plane, coming
Yeah.
at me.
There he is.
I couldn't believe it.
It's right over.
And the coolest moment is my daughter came running to me and jumped in my arms, and she had a tear in her eye. I think it really hadn't struck her that was her husband up doing and what he was doing. And so
It was just impressive to witness.
yeah, it was just an exciting moment.
Because it literally flew right
over our heads.
heads on this beach.
So we went back to the car. We ate some lunch, and we watched 3 more P-8s take off down the other runway. Well, we came to find out that actually wasn't him in that plane. He was the next one to take off down the runway the other way. Doesn't really matter what I'm saying. What a joy to be there and be able to celebrate him and all the things he's accomplished. It's exciting, and they're just this cutest little family, and we had a blast. What a beautiful place. God made that one a little extra pretty for us.
And our granddaughter.
Oh my gosh. We haven't seen the winter yet, so we got to go back in the winter. That's when it's supposed to be not so easy to take, a little colder. But we had a great time, enjoyed them, got to see our brother-in-law, sister-in-law, your brother, the sister-in-law.
Yep.
And that was just
Tromped
wonderful.
all over Mount Hood and
We got to watch up to
cascades and
waterfalls, some beautiful places. Just got to take it in. So that was our week.
I love waterfalls, and my brother loves waterfalls.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we just went from waterfall to waterfall.
And you can walk right behind them and watch them drop, and it's just breathtaking. And so we had a wonderful time, refreshing, kind of got life breathed back into us. And it was great.
I love the idea of recreation. And if you take it apart, it recreates you.
Yeah.
And I feel like just being with our granddaughter, being in these beautiful, scenic, inspiring, gorgeous places, having conversations, it did just refill, recreate, just revitalize.
Yeah. And it didn't hurt that we were staying on an 80-acre horse ranch.
That didn't hurt either.
Some reason that's fine with me. Anyway, just wonderful. There are moments in life when you've spent years and years thinking about studying, coaching on topics, and something falls into your lap that brings it all together in this fine little package with a bow on top of it. And I had this experience this week. We were lucky enough to have one of our listeners, so he knows who he is out there listening, with us this weekend. And as we were conversing, he shared a book with me. And this book was called Safe by Scott Austin Martin. And tagline, The Minimum Standard for Intimacy. And he said it was really good and not a long read. I'm not a huge reader.
No.
Amy can't get enough. She's got a unsatiable appetite for books.
Insatiable?
Presatiable. She can't get enough. You know what I'm talking about. And she has 5 of them on her nightstand all the time just in case she runs out of one. But I was really curious because we had a little conversation about it, but not in depth. And he was taken off and we didn't get to chat about it anymore. And so I went and downloaded it on Kindle. I literally finished that book in 2 hours. And that is not something I do.
No.
To focus for 2 hours for one day.
To read for 2 hours.
Read for 2 hours. This doesn't happen.
You can focus for 2 hours, but you don't usually read.
Not on a book. It doesn't happen. That would be something Amy did. That'd be something my daughter does. My son-in-law would do that same thing. They have more books in their house than they have anything. But it's not me. But it was so good. It really did answer some questions I've been asking for a very long time. And the cool thing about it, it answered with all the things we've been talking about. And like I said, kind of put a pretty bow on this package that helped me really understand and dig deep. And so we're going to talk about it today, but I'm going to ask Amy some questions because I have some questions about it from our past, and we'll see how that spurs our conversation.
Yeah, I'm curious. It is a rather short book.
Yeah, it's not long.
And it's kind of in like the manifesto category.
I can publish mine is what I felt. It encouraged me that I could publish mine.
Very clear, very simple. I think the only thing that might need to be mentioned is that it was directed towards men.
Right.
The audience of men, but I do think it applies far broader than that.
Well, the interesting part about it, and we'll get into it a little bit, is it explains about men, but it comes from why women will want this perspective to happen. And it oftentimes, in fact, the first few chapters, it talks about, he sets the scene and say, why would you have this book? What is this book and what is in this book? What should come of it? What shouldn't come of it? What shouldn't you expect? What should you expect? And he talks from both the perspective of the man that's reading the book or the woman that actually gave the man the book to read, which I thought was very, very curious. And so it definitely, yes, it is written to be from a perspective of a man and the way that he processes this topic, but also it was definitely for women. So don't let that hesitate you. So yeah, let's just jump into it. I have some questions.
Okay.
So the first thing, I've talked about triggering things, and there's a few things that definitely trigger me.
Yes.
We've talked about the word broke. If you talk about broke, it is a trigger. It brings up emotions.
Or if you say budget.
Yeah, but you can say budget. I can handle that. But if you say we're broke, that just triggers this thing that I am supposed to provide for the family, and I have completely failed. So it's the difference between, it's the shame side. You know, there's guilt and you can be worried about things, but when it says you're broken or something's wrong with you, that's when it's shame, and that doesn't have any space anywhere in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so that word literally triggers me into shame instantly. Mm-hmm. And I've worked on it. Hopefully I'm getting better, but I know it's a trigger word. I have another trigger word,
Yeah.
and that triggered word is safe or safety.
Mm-hmm. You're not the only one with that.
I believe not.
Because I watch so many couples, and when the wife says, I don't feel safe, I watch the husband just bristle and just, you see them wanting to defend that because they aren't unsafe, right? I mean, they aren't causing any intentional harm or physical abuse. And so that word is, it just lands really hard. And yet, it's not like we women had a convention to decide this
Yeah,
was the
I think you did.
word.
The Women Convention decided to
And
use it.
it,
So
it is the word that all women use. And again, like I said, it's not like we all got together and said, hey, let's use this
I think you did.
word.
Let me explain why. I think it's even deeper than that.
Okay.
So as you grow up as a man, especially in certain cultures, you're taught that there's certain things that is your responsibility. Providing for the family is one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the family goes broke, you are a failure. The other thing you're taught is that you're a gentleman and you're there to protect.
Protect and provide.
Provide. And the protection means that you are to protect your family at all cost. Even if that's to give your life, you are to do that. Not only that, we have seen what happens when men can overpower women
Mm-hmm.
and cause harm.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been shown that you have these powers that could get out of control, that could harm somebody. It's the same with sexuality, right? We talk about this. This is why there's so much shame around sexuality, because you're talking about your sexuality is harmful and it could harm people. You've got to control it and you got to do it. So you spend your whole time growing up. I had 3 older sisters. So for a long time, until my little brother came along, which is 5 years younger than me, it was me and a lot of women in the house. And this topic was forefront in my mind at all times. Women are special. You're here to take care of them. You're to protect them. You have the ability to harm them. You need to do something about that. The only time that my mom physically hit me, slapped across the face, is when I called my sister a bitch. And she turned around and she smacked me upside the head. The only time. And I remember it clearly. So it's not just the fact of, hey, this is mentioned here and there. This is our whole core of who we are. We're taught that we are to bring safety to those that we love and that we have the power to be unsafe. And so whenever you say, I don't feel safe, I was thinking, what the hell? Like, I have spent my whole life to make sure that my emotions are in check. This is what I thought. Now I know what they really were. My emotions are in check and that I never really raised my voice, nor did I ever lay a hand on you or harm you in any way, or did I ever make a perception like I was going to. And so the thought that you weren't safe is just more than I could actually bear. And in fact, I think it was the one time I actually was like, I'm done. Like, I can't take this anymore because that was mentioned. And all this time that we've been studying relationships and everything about them and how they do work and emotions and Claire, this still always lingered. There was never an answer for me. I could never figure out why I focused so much on your safety and you would come tell me you did not feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an answer. I can sleep at night now. So the very interesting thing that I didn't realize when Amy was mentioning to me that she didn't feel safe, it wasn't the physical safety that she thought I was going to harm her in certain ways, although there is those parts of it, right? I think as a man, we don't understand what it is like to walk across a dark parking lot to get into a car, or to walk past someone that is looking at you in a certain way and giving you certain vibes. We don't have that same precaution because we're physically able to protect ourselves in those ways more than a woman is.
You don't have the hypervigilance.
Yeah. So your nervous system is always on guard, guarding from the physical parts of it.
And it happens.
Right.
It has happened many times to me. So it's not like a fake hypervigilance. It's like you actually need to be aware.
No, it's real. That's absolutely right. And so I think that's a part that we just don't understand as men because our nervous system hasn't been on that hypervigilance. I'm sure there's moments, right, where we don't feel safe and that our nervous system says you need to do something about it. But I think it's still different because we feel like we have the tools to protect ourselves potentially. Anyway, I don't know. That's totally sexist or how we said it, but I think it's real. And so what I didn't realize is that Amy's nervous system had been working overtime trying to feel safe, not only in the physical realm, but more in the emotional realm. And that there were things that I was doing that caused that nervous system, not consciously, for Amy to go out and think, I don't feel safe. She was the gut feeling of, I don't feel emotionally safe.
Right.
And what really was driving this was my inabilities to regulate my own emotions.
Yes. You had a tone, and we've talked about your tone. And your tone meant that it was really like you were going to overpower me. I was not going to exist, and you were going to be right, and I was going to be wrong. And this tone meant dominance. And that tone, that dominance, that like feeling of you have to be erased, like I had to be erased in order to make things work, that was the cause of the unsafe feeling.
Now, this is the crazy part about it because I could listen to myself and I would never hear it, right? I would, in consciousness, I would say, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, how many times I talk about that? And this is what this book really talked about that I thought was uber interesting. He talks about there's two ways that men try to process their, I guess process is not right because we don't process their emotion, try to avoid our emotions and keep ourselves safe. So our nervous system is working overtime to keep us safe. And we've talked about this, right? Our primitive side of our brain, all it can do is make decisions on how we're going to keep safe. And so our decisions usually are either we're going to do what Amy just described, we're going to make ourselves bigger and erase that thing we think is not safe for us. That idea, that conversation, whatever it is that I was having with Amy at the time, the lack of intimacy. There's all kinds of things that I didn't realize my nervous system was trying to protect me from and didn't think of myself safe. I think we could probably do 500 podcasts if we dug into what all those things were and why. A lot of them is the way we're raised and the way that our brain has been trained over time, because that nervous system doesn't come out that way. It gets trained in situations to be able to protect us. So what was happening was my brain was trying to protect me. And so I got big and tried to erase Amy to make sure that I was seen and protected. The other thing he talks about, if some men don't do that, they disappear,
right,
or they run. And we've talked about that, withdraw or try to fight and control, flight or fight. I mean, that's the two ways that that brain side of the brain can work.
Hmm.
And that at a neurological connection, your brain was reading that and seeing what's happening.
It was seeing that to be present wasn't allowed.
Right.
There wasn't room for a presence, and then the nervous system reads that as unsafe.
Right.
You aren't allowed here. There isn't room for you. There isn't space for you.
And he even talks about, which I think is really interesting too, is that it's the inconsistency that the nervous system actually reads too, because it's trying to regulate itself. And when it doesn't see the consistency in the emotional processing, it doesn't know what's next. So it's vigilant to see, do I have to respond in a certain way? Do I need to protect myself? And
Am I going to have to keep quiet to keep the peace?
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to bring this up today or not? Is this going to cause a really aggressive response, or is it going to be met with openness?
Right. And that's why when we talk about intimacy fading over time, in reality, that's why it doesn't happen day one. When you're in the honeymoon phase, everything's blissful and great, and we're all happy. And I remember Amy told me, like, you don't have to agree with me. If you agree with everything, then one of us isn't necessary. And I remind her that we'd have plenty of time. We had 17 years to work on that, and we did. That I would disagree with her plenty of time. And the disagreement isn't the problem.
Nope.
It is the lack of space to emotionally regulate yourself and the inconsistency of how that looks. And you don't even have to change that emotional reaction in a lot of ways. But what you have to work on is giving the space to process through that. Because what happens when I started giving the space.
So what you're saying is it's not that you have to get rid of your
right.
emotions.
In fact, you shouldn't.
Right. It's not that you all of a sudden have to become like neutral
Yeah.
or not have emotions
Right.
or
Dismiss
suppress them or hide them.
In fact, very dangerous. Don't
Very
do that.
dangerous. It's not that you have to pretend they're not happening and just go quiet and have this outward idea of calm. It's that you're actually moving through it in a way that makes room for both people.
And I don't even think when I read it, the sense I got was moving through it's important. The most important thing is to consistently give space to have that process happen before you react.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could even react, probably not in the best way. But if I've given, because we're human, but I've given that space and I've taken that space to try to process through it, the reaction comes consistently. Greg's processed through the emotion, he's reacted. Your neurological brain doesn't have to go back and say, I don't know what's coming next. Or I don't know if Greg processed through this and now I'm going to get this blow up. And I thought that was really interesting because that to me is the biggest change that we've had in our relationship from my side.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't handle all of my emotions correctly. I don't process them the way that are the most healthy. I buffer through some of them as we always will, but I'm aware of them, number one. And two, I try to give myself space to think and process through them. And it's become, I think, and maybe you tell difference, been way more consistent.
I think the thing that has created the most safety for me is knowing that you have the capacity to process through them.
Interesting. So you've seen me be able to do it. And so you're like, oh, if he has a strong emotion, he's going to be able to process.
He's going to work through this.
Right.
But whereas before, instead of working through, it was dominant, it was punishment, it was control,
Right.
It was like erasing me so you could exist. And my safety obviously is mine and I own it, but being able to watch you steady yourself, like, yes, you have a reaction, you have a response, but then you can steady yourself, or you might call it, you may be able to process, you can come back and be sensible, and then there's room for us, right? That's what never happened before.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you were talking about that, a reminder, and he talks about this in the book. This is skills that are learned. This isn't who you are. So some of these things you might be hearing, men, and you might be bristling yourself like, oh, like when Amy talks about all those things, it doesn't make me think, oh, I'm so glad that's how I was, right? But it wasn't who I was. It was my brain was trained over years to respond that way.
Well, I think emotional regulation is a skill that all of us have to seek after.
Right.
None of us are.
It doesn't come naturally, I guess.
It's not innate. It's not natural. Our natural thing is to defend, withdraw, avoid, attack, these types of things.
Right. That's the way, because that's the way the neurological brain has been trained over the years to protect itself without any circumvention or getting in the middle of it and saying, I'm going to pass this over to my logical brain, because we weren't taught to do that. It's just run the show.
Right. And so it is, I think, one of the most important things in marriage for each spouse. In this conversation, we're talking about it in the context of the male and the husband, but I think it's just as important for wives and women.
Yep.
And I think we also, as wives and women, have the same responsibility to be able to process through ours and create enough regulation for safety for you. So right. I don't think it's a one-way street.
It's not, I think, but there definitely is different heightened responses to it.
Yes. I don't hear men say, I feel unsafe very often.
No.
I've heard it a few times, but it's not the regular. I hear women say it like 80% of the time. Right. I do think it is just a little bit of the way that I do think maybe women are a little bit more attuned, maybe this is a way to say it, to whether or not there is actually space for them.
They're allowed. It's culturally okay for you to be emotional and have emotions. For us, the culture says we shouldn't even have them. They're dangerous.
And yet you can't be human without them.
No,
right?
And this is the problem is we don't process through them. They come out in bad ways that we're talking about. He talks about that in the book. That's the coolest part about this book. All the things we've been talking about in the last 100 episodes of the podcast were in this book, right?
They're all in there.
You just tied them in a bow.
And he really calls safety something that we would relate to differentiation, right? The ability to have your own emotion and still be present. The ability to know yourself and make room for another. That is the condition for safety in a relationship.
To me, the differentiation has so much more to it as you practice to it, and this is a foundational piece of differentiation.
Right. And
so
so
it
when
starts here.
women are saying, I feel unsafe, it's usually not, at least in the ones that I'm coaching, it's not about physical harm. It's that the reactions or the inability of their spouse to be present while they are sharing something, the volatility of response, whether it will be punishment, control, withdrawal, aggression, creates a space where it's not safe to share.
You know, I've just kind of had aha as we're talking about this through, because why is this such a gap of, it's such a shocking surprise that you would say I feel unsafe, and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't even wrap my mind around why you would say that. If you think about the way the brain's triggered, that neurological system sits by itself, and the logical side of the brain, they're not connected. They have to pass things back and forth through a system, right, to do it. So when I'm logically thinking, why would you feel unsafe? My logical side of the brain knows my intentions. It knows the way I'm going about it. It knows how I've been working to make sure you're safe. And that's why it rejects the concept or idea.
And I don't think this is referring to intent, because
no, or who you are. That's what I'm saying. It's not who you are.
It's not about your worth. It's not about your intent. And yet there can still be harm happening. I don't see spouses waking up being like, I'm going to harm my spouse today.
Right. There's a few assholes in the world, but
that's not the regular. I think it's the not knowing or the not understanding what patterns are creating a lack of safety. That does cause harm over time. Again, your intent may not be that, and yet it's happening.
Right. And to me, being able to see it in a neurological, scientific way is really helpful. That's what helped me. It's not because you're a horrible human being. It's because you're a human being, right? It's because you have these two individual systems that have individual jobs. One is to keep you safe, and it responds, and it's all it can do. It can't add logic to the situation. The other one that makes us humans different than almost every other animal is we have this logical side of brain where we can take these things that are being taken in from our system that's trying to keep us safe, and we can process through them and understand what they really mean. And it's that space or that ability to be able to pass it over to the logical side of the brain is what we're asking for, the skill that we haven't been taught. And we've taught over and over again, what is it that really bridges that? They've done studies of how this happens. They've hooked the brain up and watched it happen. And the one thing that really allows you to pass it back over is curiosity. Why? I don't know if I need to make a t-shirt or something. Ask why. There needs to be a t-shirt. And I don't know if you can hear our grandkitty in the background.
Yeah, I know.
We're babysitting our grandkitty.
Our grandkitty, who is not happy to be shut out of this conversation.
He wants to talk about emotions.
I might have to open the door.
No, he needs to learn to regulate. Oh, he can't, because he can't pass it to his logical side of his brain.
No.
But that is the curiosity is why it's so important to stop and give that space to say, what is really going on here in this system? Why is it firing off, and what is it saying? Because it doesn't go away until you actually do this. And do I choose to be able to react in this way, or do I choose to react differently? I'm going to choose. The ability for us to choose is what makes us different, because we can pass it over there. And it, I'm a computer science guy, so it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I know there's systems that work in isolation, but we have integrations that integrate and pass data back and forth between those systems. And because this system is really good at doing this, but now we need to do something else. So we pass data over there and it does its thing. So it makes logical sense to me.
And I think one thing that we don't understand is that emotions are informational.
Yep.
They're not permanent, and we have choice.
Not who we are.
They're not who we are. They are giving you some type of information. And so the curiosity allows you to explore what they might be showing you. Why is this triggering? Why is this setting you off? What is it about what has happened in your life or your experience or your beliefs that is making this such an intense response? That information is what you then digest through. And maybe it's time to update something or change something or recognize something you value, or, there's lots of different responses from there. But again, then it's a response, not a reaction. And I think a lot of it is learning to recognize that emotions are going to happen. They're real. Yep. They contain a lot of important information, But just because you have an emotion does not mean you should act on it. And when you have that emotion, regulation is really about the curiosity to understand what it might be showing you, and then choosing to respond in a way that aligns with you. And when women are generally talking about being unsafe, what they're talking about is the lack of that process. They're confronting a reaction that's different every time and recognizing that there isn't, in that reaction, they're usually either being erased or punished in some way. And so then there isn't room for that process to happen.
You said something interesting. I think is the key to it is it takes away the choice.
Yes.
And the human nature at our very core, that's what we're seeking, a choice.
Yes.
Which makes a lot of sense of why at the human relationship level, the one thing that everyone wants is to be chosen.
Yes. And they want ability to choose.
And they want the ability to choose. And so because that neurological system is looking for stability because it sees something different all the time, isn't given the ability to be able to choose. Because it's on high alert of what I'm going to have to deal with next because I don't know what's coming. And it's not like you recognize it. It just happens, it happens over time and time and time. And then we dull our senses, right? And we get tired and we decide that we're going to do something about that. And usually it's not processing through it because we don't know it, how to process through it. So we distance ourselves, we run, or whatever it is that we do to protect ourselves.
It's in all the small, tiny little moments. Often we think it's the big blow-ups, but it could be in those, but more often it's in the slights, it's in the ignoring, it's in the irritated tone, it's in the that's a stupid thing to say. It's in the condescension. It's in avoidance. It's in these little moments that you're communicating, I can't tolerate your presence.
I wasn't going to go into this because I didn't want to get too much in there. I think the one takeaway that I want you to take out of this podcast is one, hey, there's a reason that their safety is important and that has to do with your neurological system. Go buy the book. It's amazing. We put it on our website, so you can go into our other resources and books.
It is a very fast read.
Quick read. And literally, I never highlight books. Amy highlights every book's in dog ears. That whole damn thing was highlighted. I ran out of pins in Kindle. I was mad. You could only pin 10 times, and I found 10 times, so I just had to highlight. So go do that first. But I think it does bring up this important topic. It's human nature to have all those responses. You're responding to try to keep yourself protected too. And that unlogical side of your brain may have snide remarks, may do things that causes your spouse to feel unsafe. The problem is not that you do them. You should try to get better at them. The problem is if you don't process through them and give space, you cannot repair. And that's the other important part of what he talks about is this space and this ability to stop and say, I'm having this emotion and I'm processing through it, gives you the ability to go back and say, I didn't intend to do that. I responded in a way. It's not what I want. Now you can't do that over and over and over again. Just be an asshole, because that doesn't work because then it fades off. But as you really are living these things, I guess what I'm saying, white knuckling and trying never to say anything that makes your wife unsafe will never work.
Right. It's not about perfection or flawlessness or only saying the right things. There's definitely humanness, but it is about recognizing the patterns that don't allow there to be room for both of you.
Right. And Gottman did the study where he said people that stayed married was not the ones that didn't fight.
Oh, right. So John and Julie Gottman in all of their studies, it's not about having conflict or even the amount of conflict. In fact, really thriving marriages have very healthy conflict all the time. It's the ability to repair and the ability to, in that conflict, stay connected, right? So instead of avoiding, withdrawing, attacking, yes, you're going to have differences. Yes, you're going to have conflict. And it is the ability to move through that determines the amount of really your capacity to thrive as a couple.
Right. And that's why I'm going back to saying this is why it's so important. From the moment of the reactionary side of the brain reacting to the situation to the time that you actually do something about that, if there is space involved there, that will give you the space for repair. If there's not, if you don't recognize it and you continue to trigger that and cause this uneven playing field that makes your spouse question what's coming next, there will never be that space to repair.
So let me just put this in calm, like day-to-day moments. The way this has showed up for us is when there is an intense emotion that comes up, and you don't ever really always know when that's going to happen. Sometimes I'm shocked by, wow, like all of a
Where
sudden
did that come from?
I have a very strong emotional, reaction. Same for you. It's that, wow, I'm having a really strong emotional response. Give me a minute to figure out what's going on. And again, you're not attacking your spouse, you're not denying yourself, but you're saying, like, whoa, there's something here for me to work, to look at. And you then come back. You're not avoiding, you're not withdrawing, you're not controlling, you're not dominating. You are being curious about what's going on for you. And usually what will happen is we'll bring that back to each other and continue the discussion, right? So then neither one of us has to be removed from the equation in order for that emotional regulation to happen.
Let me give you an example that we used in the previous podcast, if you haven't heard it. The first time we were out on vacation helping our daughter moved out to Whigby Island, I was in the midst of work that was just, I was so frustrated and I was struggling. And Amy was seeing that my responses to her were a little more on the edge, a little more of this erratic, not erotic, erratic.
Yeah, definitely
She
not
was hoping they're
erotic.
erotic, but they're not. They were erratic.
They were snappy.
They were, I was short and she was doing that. So now in the past, if she tried to bring that up, it would cause an explosion because I wasn't processing through those. And that's what she was afraid to. And she braced herself for. So she said, hey, I realize this is going on. Is this what's happening in work? And she gave me a scenario of why it would be that way. Again, in the past, I would go, you don't have any clue what you're talking about. Why would you even bring this up to me? But I could say now, I don't know. Let me think about it. And that was the space that I could go back and think, what's really going on?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this time she was wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't right or wrong. It doesn't matter.
Figured out.
But I came back to her and said, no, I thought about it. And I don't think it's this. I think it's this is what's really causing it. And just because we had that ability to have that space and talk it through changed everything.
And the way maybe it would have gone before is you would have got snappy. I would have withdrawn. That was my.
Yep.
And then you would have been angry at my withdrawal.
Or chased you.
And chased, and I would have probably pushed you away. Yep. And again, neither one of us emotionally regulating, neither one of us bringing up what's happening, sort of like all these dance steps that
spiraling out of control,
that are eroding safety and also each other.
One last thing. This podcast is called Undressing Intimacy. So why the heck are we talking about emotional safety? And the reason why we're talking about it, it is the key foundational piece that has to be in place, absolutely has to be in place before you can have an intimate relationship. And most of the problems that are brought to us around intimacy, whether it be sexual intimacy or emotional intimacy, they have a foundation problem here.
Right. If you can't relax, if you can't be, in order to be intimate, you need to have a calm nervous system. You need to be in a state you can really relax so that you can play and engage. And that's usually what's missing, that ability to be fully relaxed, to feel, I'm going to do air quotes, safe in this space so that you can engage in erotic play. And so it is a step one. And it is learning the skills as a couple to create that ability to be honest, to be present, and to be able to get to a state where you can be relaxed with each other. Or another way to say it is to feel safe with each other.
Right. That is why the book's tagline, the minimum standard for intimacy, is true, right? He's saying this is the foundational piece that has to be in place before you can start working on any other intimacy stuff. And this is what we've seen over the last 10 years as we started working with couples, hundreds and hundreds of couples. They usually start at the toys, positions, frequency questions. They go find podcasts that talk about that. They look at advertisements for the next sex toy or the 3 different positions you can try. And none of that is bad. We believe in all that, by the way. Believe me, we believe in that. But if they have not done the foundational work of being safe, then none of that stuff's going to work. In fact, it's going to cause it to be worse. And this is where the frustration gets to a point where it bubbles over and you're like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I was like, I cannot do this anymore because everything I've tried hasn't worked. And if Amy would just fix herself and like the new toy I bought her, we would be good. But because she was not safe, there's no amount of toys I could buy or position books that I could buy and convince her that would allow her to actually enjoy that intimacy because she did not feel safe.
And it's not something you can convince your body of. It's something that has to actually be present.
That is the crazy thing, right? You can't speak it into existence because your logical side of your brain is not doing that logic. Like it can stop and think and try to convince you, but it's not the part of your brain that's doing this. It's that neurological side of the brain that's just reactionary. So it's got to be able to feel safe.
Right. And safety is, I can be honest here.
There's
I can
space for
handle
me.
their honesty. I can give my feedback. I can take feedback. I can hear a no. They can hear a no, right? It's that capacity to know you can move through these states and your relationship is intact.
Yep. And really, if I go back and look and see what happened, it was that snowball effect that really changed our marriage. Because I learned that I needed to regulate my emotions and I started doing that. But in that regulation, I learned the only way to really do that was to be truly honest about what was going on, because hiding those emotions and burying them didn't allow Amy to know what was going on. And even though I didn't say anything, my nervous system was reacting in a way that caused her nervous system to know that something was off, right? And so the snowball effect to me was I decided to be honest, and then I watched you process through that and not have the reaction that you used to have, was withdraw, find you in the closet crying,
You love to say
whatever
that.
it was. It happened.
It happened a few
A
times.
lot. She's hidden it. It's scars that she's hidden. She does not remember. But that's the pattern that we were in, that we had to get out of it. And the nice thing about the snowball effect, to my mind, is when I saw Amy's response to my honesty, it encouraged my courage. It's not fun, and to continue to be honest. And there were hard conversations that
And
weren't
to regulate
happy, and
yourself.
regulate those emotions around them. And that honesty didn't bring up happy butterflies and unicorns all the time. In fact, just the opposite. It brought some of the hardest conversations we've ever had in our marriage. But because we were processing through them and we were allowed to have those hard conversations, it gave us space for choice. It gave us a foundation of honesty and safety and intimacy.
And safety doesn't just mean comfort, right? A lot of people
Not at
equate
all.
it. It's safety means just the opposite. In the pressuring, uncomfortable, really difficult, intense situation, you know there's enough regulation to make it through.
I am given the space to use the tools I've been trained in to regulate my own emotions. The number one thing, again, that causes unsafety is like if you don't have the choice to do that, if you're not going to give the choice to do it. But if I have to spend my whole time reacting to my partner's emotions because they're erratic in how they deal with them, is really what causes it to be unsafe. Anyway, we can go on, and I'm sure you'll see some of this pop up in our podcast moving forward. Our group coaching, I'm sure they'll be coaching on this. We may have a month of safety. I don't know. We had
Creating safety.
Yep. But it was such, again, wonderful thing for me to go through, and so exciting for me because, one, it answered the question that I had never had answered, even though we spent 10 years studying this. Always in the back of my mind was, how could? In fact, when our friend brought it up, he brought up his wife and said, I don't feel safe, and how it just made him so upset. And at the time before I read the book, I'm like, oh yeah, me too. I still get upset when she doesn't feel safe. So it answered that long question that I hadn't answered, even though I had had all the tools in place. And it gave me the logic behind it, the scientific process of what's happening to cause that. And a lot of hope of, hey, I do have the ability to be safe. So appreciate you listening. Hopefully you can take some stuff out of this. We would love to help you because, again, it's easy to understand the concept, but when you're in the middle of the battle, if you don't have a third party that can help you understand what's going on, then it just becomes very difficult to do that. And so please go up on langfordlifecoaching.com. There's a free consult button. Click that button. We'd love to have a consult with you. Join us for a group coaching. There's a 7-day free trial, so you can show up to one of them and see how it works. And we would love to work with you.
Yes, we would.
Free webinar next week.
Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Tuesday, June 30th, 7 p.m. Central Time. So the day that this is released.
Yep. Go sign up.
And if you, for some reason, miss it and you still want to see it, email me at amy@langfordlifecoaching.com. We will be recording it. And if you miss it, just email me. We'll send it out too.
Until next time.
Keep undressing your intimacy.
Bye-bye.